Hey, welcome back to Warchant.com. And I am joined by Mr. Recruiting FSU Recruiting himself, Michael Langston. And Michael, only about a week away from that late signing period. We were talking before the show, a little different than previous seasons, but there's a couple guys. We'll save that for later. I'm sure you'll have a recruiting chat later this week to discuss some of those guys, but there's only probably a couple guys left potentially
Yeah.
last to sign as far as high school recruits. You never know, a couple transfers or two we may talk about. And that's why we're here today. If you missed it earlier, we did a breakdown of the offensive guys, kind of taking a look at where the class is now in terms of all the guys coming in, combined with the guys that are coming back from 2020, kind of make up that thing. So I think it's good to look at where Florida State stands at various positions and scholarships. And who else to do it besides you to discuss some of these new guys and what they can bring to the table for Florida State, because they need a lot of help.
Yeah.
Several positions. Funny when I'm doing these breakdowns, and you can read the full breakdown on warchant.com. If you're just watching this on YouTube, and every position, I'm like, yep, they need help here. Yep, pretty much position. You need help, and you need it right away. And the good thing is we're going to talk about the defense here, Michael. And they did get some pretty good help there on that side of the ball. I'm going to share part of the story we have on Warchant, breaking this down for you right now. And as you can see, we've got some guys. I'm going to start really at defensive end or defensive tackle, defensive line there. And starting with defensive tackle, Michael, obviously you lose a couple guys, Corey Durden, Marvin Wilson, who provided some limited contributions, honestly, in 2020. But, I mean, those are two veterans that are gone. Big Coop, Robert Cooper comes back, showed some signs. That's a big thing to get him back. But I think they really needed at least one more, and they sure got it with Keir Thomas. And you want to talk about an experienced guy. I think he's got something like 30 starts coming from South Carolina coming here. You just pencil him. Michael, I assume right away you pencil him as a starter. And then what kind of impact can he make for the Noles this fall, you think?
Yeah, I think he's a penciled-in starter. When you talk about, he's a guy that can play strong side defensive end. He can play. He can also play inside the defensive tackle position, which is where he really excels because he's very good at getting off one-on-one blocks. That's what really stood out about him. He's just a fun kid that I've known for a while. I followed Kier when he was back at Miami Central. He's got lightning fast hands. I mean, he has violent hands. He gets off the ball really quick. That's what they need. They need pass rushers, and he's a guy that kind of fits that mold where you can use him. What I think what they wanted in this class with a defensive lineman from the transfer portal was if it wasn't a pure edge rusher, we'll get to the other guy later, but if it wasn't a pure edge rusher, they wanted somebody that was versatile that they could use it in and also inside tackle. And this kid is a tackle for loss machine. I mean, he gets in the backfield. He's going to add a lot to that lineup. I think he's going to start. I think he's going to make a very significant impact when you watch. I mean, it was an honorable mention SEC in the PFF grade. I mean, that says a lot when you play for a team like South Carolina. It wasn't that great, but he was one of the bright spots of when you look at his stats and his grades like every week. I mean, he was the guy he's going to change that pass rush issue that FSU's had. He's going to get after the quarterback. He's going to get those tackles for loss where you force teams into 2nd and 14s and stuff like that. He's going to be that guy that's going to bring a lot. And I think the whole thing made sense. Right when he went in the portal, I hit it immediately on our thread because I knew this was a guy that Odell wanted badly out of high school, but they didn't have room at that time. Ended up going to South Carolina. But this is a guy that you knew loved FSU, that wanted to be there. And then you knew if they got a second chance, they were going to get him. And I think he's a big addition for them. One of the biggest they have that they've gotten from the transfer portal.
And we look at that position, only 7 total guys on scholarships. So that's a little light on numbers. I know they're hoping to add one more if they can. And there's a story up on warchant.com by Adam Friedman you can read right now, and Tyron Malone to give the latest kind of where he's at with his recruiting. But I feel we're going to have to wait till that late signing period to see what he decides. I don't know if we'll get a lot of clarity between now and then. So definitely a position of need going into 2022. We'll talk more about that later. You talked about it. You alluded to it, Michael. Perfect timing. Defensive end. Boy, do they need help there, man. 3 total sacks between your 2 starters, who are obviously both gone. Jamie Robinson and Joshua Kane-Doe have both moved on. So they need big help there. And boy, they got maybe one of the best defensive end transfers you could possibly get in the portal. And that's, of course, Jermaine Johnson from the University of Georgia. Really, to get a guy who's one of their main players, a guy who's proven himself in terms of getting to the quarterback, making sacks, and we played kind of a linebacker defensive end hybrid. Mm-hmm. To get a guy like that to come in right now, add a position in need is absolutely huge for Florida State, Michael.
Yeah, I mean their pass rush was abysmal last year as far as FSU. They got nothing out of Janarius Robinson. Kane wasn't healthy, so you basically essentially I think they finished with 3 or 4 sacks, which is crazy when you think about all the history that FSU has at the defensive end position. And so they need somebody that like Jermaine Johnson that was going to go in there and he's going to get after the quarterback. And you're talking about a guy that didn't even start and he's finished. I mean, he had 5 sacks. He had more sacks than anybody on FSU's team, and he didn't even start. So that tells you a lot about his production, what he can bring. He's going to bring a major edge to that outside. Obviously, I think they would like to add one more. If you get one more, I think you really complete the trifecta with that. But I think Jermaine coming in there, I mean, not to just say this about every starter, but I think with Jermaine Johnson, he's got to have to be a pencil-in starter when you look at him. I mean, everything he does fits perfectly what you're looking for. I think 6'5", 260 around there. He can get. I mean, he's very, very good at getting on the edge. He's very good at angles. He's very good at that stuff. So he's going to dramatically change how FSU gets after the quarterback, and that's a desperate need. And that's I would say that was the number one need that the staff said, we got to get an elite dude, at least one. We'd like 2. They plan to get 2. They're hoping to get 2, but the plan was to at least get one elite dude, and they got one from Georgia and Jermaine Johnson. I think that's a big addition. I think looking through your thing, Chambray Jackson, Joshua Farmer, those guys could also end up playing inside. So I would put them as defensive end and defensive tackle. I think they could grow both of them. I mean, Joshua Farmer's like 270 now. Wow. So, I mean, he's going to – I think both of them can play that position where you're going to have them inside and out. So defensive tackle room maybe looks thin, but on paper – but when you measure it all out where those 2 guys can play, I mean, that boosts you up to 9. That's almost, that's a good, getting to a better situation. So I think those guys can play both. And I think that's an important thing of what Fuller and Hagen's, what they're looking for is a guy that's versatile. They can move around.
Yeah, definitely beneficial to have that, especially with injuries. And depending on your opponent, you may want to do different formations depending how they match up. So it's always good to have that versatility along the defensive line. Before we move on, Michael, I'm a little bit because I think everybody's aware, everybody's eligibility transfers over from 2020. That's why if you look at this list right now, you go, they've got 8 freshmen. I mean, a lot of those guys will be sophomores right now, but they retain their eligibility. They're all freshmen. But I think Florida State didn't get a whole lot of look, or at least fans don't know a lot about Quayshawn Fuller, Curtis Fan, McClendon, Josh Griffiths, TJ Davis, all those guys. And looking at this chart right now, obviously they need one of these guys, whether it's one of those freshmen or someone else to kind of step up this year, Michael. And you're familiar with these guys. You're only a year removed from when they signed with Florida State. Who one or two of those guys you think have the potential maybe emerge and become in that rotation, become a major contributor at defensive end?
I think 2 guys really jump out to me. Quayshawn Fuller's one, Derek McClendon's another. Derek was the most productive out of the guys, really came on late in the year. I think Derek's going to have a big part as far as that rotation. I mean, he gets after a quarterback. He's a good pass rusher. You see that he contains the run very well. He's very good against the run. And then Quayshawn's a guy that I've heard very positive things about, even in the offseason. Even though they had their offseason workouts delayed, I think he's a guy that I've heard a lot of positive feedback on, both on what he did this season and the excitement level that the staff has on those kids. Those are the 2 kids that just really jump out to me. And then we'll see what these other young guys can do that haven't played as much. I mean, I know Josh Griffiths gotten a little playing time, and I think Curtis Fan's gotten a little bit too. But I think those 2 guys really jump out to me from that roster that I've heard the most buzz about, that I think you're going to expect them to be solidly in the rotation this year coming up with FSU.
Now let's move to linebacker position, which is obviously not very productive. Let's just say that this last year they underachieved a little bit. No, I don't want to sell them too short, because I think by the end of the year, I think Emmett Rice was playing better. We saw Amari Gaynor show some flashes, and Steven Dix became the full-time starter by the end of the year, and he looked solid. So it's odd for me to say this position may be in the best shape headed into 2021 of any of them. And now we got a little sneak peek. We saw a little bit last year. And we talked to Jamie Robinson the other week. We'll talk about him in a minute. And it basically said their base is going to be a nickel, which means you're running 2 linebackers. So I mentioned 3 guys, and you look at some of the other guys that we're going to talk about here in a minute. They're actually okay there. They might have a little bit of depth, Michael. And along those lines, they added in a few guys. I mean, I don't want to leave out DJ Lundy, who came on at the end and showed that he could play pretty well out there too. How about a couple of these other guys, Patrick Payton, Jordan Eubanks? Are these guys probably maybe not a ton of playing time first year because of that depth? Or do you think one of them could challenge, or is it maybe more special teams that these guys will kind of cut their teeth there early on?
I think they'll probably cut their teeth special teams early on. I think that's a lot to ask of both these guys. They're coming in the summer. So if they were early enrollees, I might say, hey, there's an outside chance maybe you can get on third down and, maybe some third down plays, but probably cutting their teeth on special teams. Patrick Payton's the more intriguing of the two because he can really get after the passer. Maybe they use him how they used Demori Tate early in his career, that just certain spots they might throw him in. You might see that, but Patrick's probably the one, even though he's a little light as far as what you look, when you get the college nutrition in there. But Mari Gaynor was kind of the same way when he got there. So I think you could see some stuff that they used with Amari Gaynor. I really like. I know a lot of people are critical, and I understand that as far as linebacker, but I really like this just young group, and it's not surprising that the PFF grades for the linebackers were some of the best were from the young guys. And I really like Steven Dix. I'm really high on Amari Gaynor. I think Emmett Rice really came on late in that season. I think he really performed at a pretty solid level, and certainly there's, like you mentioned, there's a lot of depth there. You bring in Jamie Robinson, who you can help your back end as far as different things of what you run. Not technically a linebacker, but can do some of the things that linebackers are asked to do. So I really like this group, and I understand why this wasn't a position they just pushed for experienced guy. I think they like their group, and they like where they're going and trending up as far as these guys. And I like the starters. I'm just interested to see, okay, who are those other guys, the 4 or 5 guys that are going to add in and be able to chip in and help this defense.
And I think be a little bold here, a hot take. I think when we look back maybe a year from now, we'll go, this will be one of the most improved groups, because I think having a whole year with it, like you said, get everybody back, you got some good depth, and I think Chris Marv's a very good coach, where there's a little scare we got last week that looked like he might be headed to Texas, but those fears are seem to be dissuaded as they brought in a new coach there, Sark did. So, I think him having a whole offseason to work with these guys and implement his scheme, which they haven't had lately, they've always been changing coordinators, coaches constantly. I think you'll see a vastly improved unit here coming up in 2021. So excited to see about that. Now, the position that really just got majorly shook up, on my breakdown, I went through this. Florida State in the last few months has lost 6 defensive backs. But they signed between transfers and signees. They've got 7 coming in. So, this group is going to be massively different in 2021 than it was, Michael. But I think they hit a home run with some of these guys we're going to talk about here in a minute. And I got to start with my guy, and I just loved this interview. If you haven't seen it on Warchant on their YouTube channel, go check out Jamie Robinson, man. What a sharp kid. And you worry a little bit about sometimes with transfers, is these guys got some red flags. Why are they leaving, man? You listen to him for a couple minutes, man. This kid is all in. He's sharp. He's going to be a dominator. He right in. Let's just start with this guy. He talked about, I'm going to be the starting nickel. He basically said, and we talked about those 5 defensive back sets. He's going to be the guy. What I love about what he does, Michael, because in that nickel, you got to be able to not only cover, but you better be able to tackle. And when you're running those, they only have 2 true linebackers. That nickel has to be a big help on tackling. This guy is a tackling machine and has been. So, I assume you feel like he's a perfect fit for what Adam Fuller wants to do in that nickel role.
Yeah, he's exactly what they need. Nothing against the previous guys they've had, but when you're playing that nickel position, it's got to be about instincts and reaction and how you process stuff in your head, how quickly you do it. Jamie is extremely good at that. He's a very instinctful player. He can see the plays before it's happening, but it's not just seeing the plays. It's processing everything in your mind quickly to make an impact as far as on that play. How many times did you see FSU last year where the players were put in position there and then they just couldn't make the plays? But that's not going to be the case, I don't think, with Jamie Robinson. I think he's very good at dissecting the play. He's very good at getting off blocks. He's shown that many a times, and just a big hitter. He really gets in there when he brings guys to the ground. They go to the ground. So I think he's a great addition as far as that secondary. I think you pair him up with the guys like Travis Jay, and that if he plays the safety role, that's a pretty solid combination, because Travis can handle run support, but he's also extremely good in pass defense. So You add those two together, that's a dramatically improved safety room right there.
Looking at the other spots here, a couple of let's talk about Brandon Moore and McClendon, and a couple of guys that can play cornerbacks. They transfer over. They did really well at college, and they're coming into going to compete there. I mean, are both of these guys you think viable guys are going to compete right away for that starting cornerback, or at the very least get in the rotation?
Yeah, I think if Brandon's healthy, I would even go as far to say there's a good chance he could be starting.
Wow.
I mean, that's how good he is. If Brandon's healthy, he's going to be hard to keep out of that starting lineup because he's just a natural corner that has natural instincts, and he's got length, and he's got size, and that's everything that they're looking for in their corners. His feel for the game is very high. You know, like I said, I talked to several people. You know, when we kind of revealed this news, right when he hit the portal, probably 2 weeks before he hit the portal, somebody told me like, "Hey, watch out for this guy because if he goes in the portal, it's looking really good for FSU." And it was a lot of people 2 or 3 weeks even before he hit the portal that felt good. And he's like, look, if this kid's healthy, he's a phenomenal player. He's one of the best defensive backs out there in the transfer market. So out of those two, if Brandon's healthy, I think Brandon not only plays, but I think he has a good chance to start. Now, the other thing is, this is kind of the forgotten guy, is Demori Tate.
Yeah.
Like, people
forget about Michael.
People forget about him. Like, he was
the highest ranked guy last year, right?
Yeah.
That signed.
Yeah, highest ranked guy. He's got great length. He had an incredible Under Armour game when he played before he got to FSU. This kid's motivated. He's ready to go. He's gonna have a chip on his shoulder. I think he's gonna really battle for that starting spot. I think it's gonna be a fun battle watching both him, Brandon Moore, and all these other guys. I think you're gonna see him jump right in there, and I think he's gonna make an impact. And then the other guy is Hunter Washington. I think Hunter's got a really good chance of playing. So Hunter's one of the freshmen, and I think out of the freshmen, he probably has the best chance to get on the field really early, if not win the starting job. Probably not win the starting job, but he's going to play a lot, I think, with Hunter Washington. And the others, I think they're very talented. It's just about how quickly they transition and pick stuff up as far as in this offense.
And Mike, I want to put you on the spot on our happy hour. Now, you did take part in the happy hour last week because you did your recruiting chat on Wednesday. Right. So we don't want to give too much recruiting. We've got to mix in some team stuff. But one of our callers kind of put us on the spot, and it was a really good question, was who do you think will be the two starting quarterbacks? So I'm going to put you on the spot, Michael. Right now, Florida State opens against Notre Dame. We all know that for the 2021 season. When they line up that first time, who are going to be the two cornerbacks in your opinion?
Well, one side is easy for me. It's Jarvis Brownlee. I think that's a safe one to me. I think I'm very high on Jarvis. I think he's done a great job. You feel the safest with him, and then I'll go like I've said before. I think Brandon Moore is going to be that guy. I think Brandon Moore is going to be the guy if he's healthy. The only way I don't see Brandon Moore is if he's not healthy. If Brandon Moore is healthy, which all indications we get is that his health is really good. He's ready to go, kind of like McKenzie. And McKenzie's even said, I think, before that Brandon's farther ahead of him in the rehab process than he was. So I think Brandon is the guy. I think Hunter's going to really challenge. I think Demori's going to really challenge. I think all three of those guys are going to play a lot. But if I had to pick the starter, I would go with Brandon right now.
And we need to bring a guy like Miko Dotson, who was hurt a lot this last year, but led the nation the year before in interception. So, man, it's amazing you lose Asante Samuel, but it seems like the cupboard's pretty full there. If they can get a couple of those guys healthy, boy, they could be really stocked at that position. So we're going to wrap it out here. But last thing I want to mention here again, we saw this on offense, and that's why I like kind of doing this in a table format, because you get to look at kind of scholarship-wise how this stuff breaks down. Amazing to me if you look through this. Now, not looking the bold or the transfers, but if you look defensively, they've had – 4 seniors on defense last year. I mean, that was it of those guys coming back. And, Leonard Warner got benched. Williams was hurt all season. And you look, there's only a couple juniors on the whole list too. I mean, it's unbelievable that they were able to function like that. And it shows again how young this team was. And I know people go, you're making excuses for them, but man, the attrition they've had in the poor recruiting the last couple of years that Mike Norvell and staff has had to make up for. I mean, you got to realize what he's had to go through. And now you start to see these transfers come in, this young talent, and hopefully let's pray here. COVID lets up. We're able to get a full off season. These guys are able to work out in the weight room, get in practices, the off season conditioning, all that stuff goes through. And last thing on just Michael, you pretty confident that they are building a pretty good base to be 2021, 2022. We're going to see maybe not a team that's going to challenge for a national championship, but a competent team that can capable of winning 8, 9, 10 games a season.
Yeah, I think it's very, very possible. I mean, we all gave our picks. I said 8 wins and an outside shot at 9. The reason I feel that is because you're addressing every major weakness that you have. The 2 major weaknesses, this is the way I look at the portal. This is the way I viewed the portal. Your 2 major weaknesses were pass rush and back end guys. You didn't get anything from your pass rush. I think 3 or 4 sacks. That's atrocious. So you're adding a guy that's a great pass rusher. Then you have Kier, who's a really good defensive tackle pass rush or strong side end pass rush. And then if you can add one more guy at defensive end, maybe the Leota kid from Northwestern or somebody that matches what Jermaine Johnson does, then I think you're ready to compete with anybody. Obviously, everyone knows about the offensive tackle situation. They know they need one, but on the defensive side, I think that's really – you get that one more defensive lineman in this class, whether it's a Taiwan Malone or it's a transfer defensive end. I think you're ready to compete with anybody. I don't care who it is. I'm not saying you're going to win, but you'll be able to compete with those teams. You won't see games like 48-14 where FSU just looks like they're outmanned. I think the biggest takeaway from the portal is they were atrocious in pass defense in the secondary. They know they needed guys that are going to help them right now. I think they've gotten that. I think they were very detailed with the way they recruited these guys, then studied these guys and researched them. I think even last year, it's okay to admit it, I think they kind of rushed in some of these guys that they picked up. Let's face it, 3 of them have been really good. Lovett, Corbin, and Love Taylor. But the others have just been unknown. So I think this year they really did a lot of research and study, and they got bona fide guys that are experienced, productive guys. And I think it's going to be – I think you're going to see certainly an improvement there as far as what they do on the defensive side of the ball.
That's a good point about the portal. We all have to recognize it's a relatively new thing with these guys transferring like this, so it's a whole new process. It's not like recruiting. They've got their process in place. They can vet these guys for a couple of years, and you talk to principals and teachers and coaches and friends and other teammates, so you can really get a good picture of these players, man. You got a day or two. These guys go in the portal, and, man, you got to make snap judgments right away because if you wait on them, they're going to go somewhere else. So, I mean, I think they've done a tremendous job bringing these guys in. At least it looks good on paper. We'll see come this fall how good they are. Well, Michael, appreciate all your input as always. And I'm assuming this will air before Wednesday. So I think Wednesday we'll have to have you back on the air again on YouTube to preview next week's late signing period and maybe a couple of these transfers you're talking about. Maybe we'll have some more clarity there so you can check into YouTube, check Warchant on Wednesday night. We'll have Michael doing some of that and hit that thumbs up. It's right down there below Michael, and that helps us out. Gets us out there more and helps Warchant out a big deal. So, Michael, keep up the good work, buddy. You only got a little more than a week to go, and I know you're looking forward to that vacation. So keep up the good work. We'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate it, Gene. And a reminder to people, if you haven't followed it, we're already starting to release the 2022 hot board. We've gone through the wide receivers, running backs, and quarterbacks. I know what you're waiting on, guys, that offensive line. It's coming. So we'll have that coming up. So just a few things that are coming up with us. Obviously, team coverage. We'll have a lot of great stuff coming up with the basketball team, which, by the way, is tearing it up. I told Gene they're going to win against Louisville. I told him.
Yeah, you got me there, man. They were awesome against. So I'm just going to do a little preview here. Here's a little bit of the little receiver board you got here. Some stuff going on for 2022. So great stuff by Michael. But you know what? You got to be a subscriber to Warchant to read the whole thing. So that's what we do, a little tease there. But you're right, man. Basketball is kicking butt, and Corey and I are doing a great job covering that. And got the Canes this week, Michael. So a little rivalry action coming in. So that'll be a lot of fun. So Stay tuned to warchant.com for more coverage. And we'll talk to you about football and recruiting soon, Michael.
All right.